So in this week's rumor mill, we have the X-Men very potentially joining the MCU in a very dumb fashion. We have a live-action adaptation of a fan favorite anime that's getting an interesting change, as well as Disney still messing up fairy tales. We're gonna get to all of those rumors and a few more, so let's jump into this, shall we?
It's classified.
Hello nerds, and welcome to the Rumor Mill. You have found the appropriate cheat code to get to the news before it becomes news. Here we will discuss rumors in the pop culture and nerdy realm of things, then we will discuss the probability that those rumors are legitimate, and then finally probably a little bit of my own personal speculation. If you want the more concrete news that has already become news, then there is a full news show over on the main channel called The Week in Nerddom, which you can find linked down in the description, as well as at the end of this video. Now, let's see what all of those rumor mongers have to say, and which of them are just plain full of poop. Kicking things off in the rumor mill, we have new source for old rumor, rather. No confirmations or refutations to speak of, so let's get into the new source. This one has to do with Blade. We've talked previously about the rumors surrounding Blade and how it's been pushed back a number of times. It went from a series to a movie and back again. Well, now it seems that they are stripping Blade down. Stripping down was the last time we talked about this. It's back to a movie. I'm pretty sure we talked about that as well. So the news source is elaborating on the fact that the quote-unquote stripping down of this movie just brings it back to where it should have been anyway, and that is Blade fighting vampires, because that's what Blade does. Being as the previous Blade movies don't technically exist inside the MCU, they have some perfectly decent ground to go through so that they can reestablish the character. So I don't know why this is considered a stripping down. It should be something to establish the character inside of this new universe that they have developed anyway. So this is kind of what it should be. So thanks for stripping it down, I guess. But no percentages for new sources. Let's just get into the new rumors where we do deal with percentage of likelihood. We're going to start things off in the MCU with Thanos. There have been a number of rumors surrounding Thanos' return. I don't believe we have addressed any of them up until this point, so let's kind of address them all at once. Not the least of those rumors is being fueled, or not the least of those seeds that is fueling the rumor has been laid by Mr. Josh Brolin himself in a number of interviews recently, where he has said he will be returning to the MCU. Though, that isn't to say exactly that he's going to be returning to the MCU as Thanos, because remember, he did play another character that theoretically could be coming to the MCU, and we do have a movie that is attached to that character coming out very soon, so it could be a Cable reference that he's making, so that isn't exactly set in stone at this point, just because Brolin is saying vague things. But we do now have a number of other rumor mongers talking about this, and depending on which one you're listening to, it could be a variant of Thanos, it could be a reboot of Thanos, and it could be one of the bigger variants of Thanos, King Thanos from the comic books. I honestly never read the arc that deals with King Thanos. I do know that he has all of the stones in a crown and not in a gauntlet, so yeah, I don't know exactly the relevance there, but not everybody's saying King Thanos, though the consensus is, and that's what we're going to be dealing with here, is that Thanos is going to be the one returning to the MCU, and I honestly think that of the two possibilities for Brolin to be coming back as, I don't think Cable is really strong in the runnings, so we're going to say about 70% likely that it will be Thanos that Josh Brolin will be returning as, just simply because of the breadth of the rumors that are surrounding that character. Nobody's really talking about Cable. At this point, if Cable were really in the running, we'd have heard about it by now, and we really haven't. So that's what we got there. Let's move next over to Disney screwing up fairy tales. I don't know how this is a hard thing to do, but the Snow White starring Rachel Zegler is once again hitting roadblocks. According to rumor, it is still a mess. They are going back and doing even more reshoots, which is kind of likely. That's why they pushed it back by a full year. So that kind of stands to reason that they would be doing some test screenings, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and then going back and reshooting so that they can recraft the movie, if you will, around the things that work in test screenings. And we have heard of a number of test screenings at this point, though we haven't officially been made privy to an official reshoot announcement. So this is technically rumor, just kind of stands to reason. I would be very surprised if this wasn't true, so let's put that at about 80% likely that they are in fact going back to reshoots, because the first round of reshoots didn't do it. All right, our next one is a bit divisive as well, and this one also in the MCU. We're talking about the Silver Surfer. Previously, it has been announced that they're going with the female Silver Surfer from the comic books. The casting has all been officially and all but been officially announced at this point. Pretty sure that is still technically a rumor, though only technically because it's in the trades. But we do have another casting announcement or a casting rumor rather, for the Silver Surfer in the MCU, in the Fantastic Four movie, no less. And that is LaKeith Stanfield, also having rumored to be cast as the male version. Durin, I can't remember the Silver Surfer's real name and I apologize, but the male version of the Silver Surfer, aka the Herald of Galactus in the Fantastic Four movie, being as LaKeith Stanfield hasn't really said anything about this, hasn't even done the whole vague, maybe I will, maybe I won't kind of stuff, and has recently been very publicly cast in a new project. This seems very, very unlikely. This comes from one of the weaker sources I get. It's honestly kind of keep it around just so we can shoot some of these rumors down, because some people will just believe anything because it's in print, or somebody has some moderate Photoshop skills and they can make a poster look real, and so people will believe, oh, there's a poster, there must be. No, there's very little to go on here. There's very little evidence that this is true. We're going to say 20% likely that we will be seeing, and the very least that we will be seeing LaKeith Stanfield cast as the male Silver Surfer. But honestly, I would give that same likelihood if we're going to be seeing male Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four movie at all. So there you go. Moving from there, we have One Punch Man is our next round of rumors. One Punch Man, we talked previously, I think it's been a number of years at this point, but we have talked previously about the live action adaptation of One Punch Man. If I remember correctly, though don't quote me on this necessarily because I don't, but if memory serves to some degree, I'm pretty sure Netflix at one point owned the rights. I don't think they still do, but they did for a moment. But there is another production company behind it that's also funding it, so that's how it keeps going. But it seems that there has not been a whole lot of forward motion made on this project because they are still in the writing phase. And the last time we talked about this was 2020, so we're talking 4 years ago. And that's just according to the notes. There could have been something that I missed or something because my note taking was not as thorough, surprise, surprise, up until recently. So that's just what I could find. But this rumor surrounding One Punch Man has to do with a new writing crew. Previously, I can't remember who the writers were, but it's irrelevant because if we have new writing staff, that means we have a new script in the works. And new writing staff is reportedly Rick and Morty co-creator Dan Harmon, as well as executive producer Heather Ann Campbell. This, maybe, there seems to be a lot of buzz around this at this point. This comes from, this comes from one of the better sources, which is why we're going as high as we are. And also, Dan Harmon kind of needs a W, so if he's attached to do something like this, then there's gotta be something to it. We're gonna say 85% likely, and honestly at this point, it feels like a little bit of a stretch, but that's what I have written down, so that's what we're going with. All right, so that's what we have for One Punch Man. Let's talk next about Helldivers 2. This is another one that's a little bit of a fence sitter, but Helldivers 2 reportedly is in preliminary talks for release on Xbox platforms. So the Xbox, also presumably Game Pass, so you can play it on PC through Microsoft Game Pass as well, is the assumption that is what that means. Sony previously has not played very well with others, specifically Microsoft in a lot of ways. And they're kind of loving the fact that Helldivers 2 is an exclusive, and it's one of the most hot games out there right now. Exclusive as far as consoles are concerned, because you can play it on PC. But there is another side to that argument, because we do live in the present time. And we do see that gaming only goes so far when it is exclusive. Exclusivity can get you to a point, but if you are on all platforms, then that point can potentially be blown completely out of the water. Meaning you can only have X number of players on a single platform. The second you open it up to multiple platforms, that number gets much, much bigger. So, with the popularity of Helldivers 2, and being as this is a gaming rumor, and generally speaking my gaming sources are pretty accurate, this though still feels like there is enough on both sides, being Sony and then also potentially Sony wanting money. There's a lot to go on, and this is a new gaming source, so we're not going to give it as high as we normally would. Honestly, we're not going to give it very high at all. We're going right down the middle with this, 50%, because I do think there is enough to make a good argument either way. We're going to say 50% likely this will or will not happen. If we get more on that, we'll kind of discuss that a little bit further. But our next rumor has to do with the X-Men coming to the MCU. This is the big one for the rumor mill this week. New rumor has it that the X-Men movie that we know is coming, we just don't know when or how at this point, but the when or how is being laid out as, according to this rumor, when is between Avengers 5 and Secret Wars, so that's kind of a big window, but also is said to be taking place on World 838 in the theatrical universe. So it will be another multiverse story, which kind of is not working in its favor. I think that the multiverse stuff, dabbling in it is fine as far as people who don't read comic books are concerned, but the average layperson who is not comic aware is not going to take this very well. It seems that there have been a number of studies and surveys and things in this area recently as to what people are like about the movie-going experience and so on and so forth, and multiverse stuff has not been doing super well when it comes to audience opinion. So there's that. We also have why. I can't say there isn't any, but there is a very, very small chance that they could make this work by attaching it to the Deadpool movie, because we do know from the Deadpool trailer that the version of Wolverine we're getting in this Deadpool and Wolverine movie is going to be from a universe that crumbled effectively. And so if this is the tale of the X-Men from that universe, and that's why they have come over into the main MCU universe, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure they're also referring to as the 616, but that might just be the comic books and I'm conflating the two. Either way, that is the only way this works. And there is a slight possibility they go that direction, and we will know fairly soon once Deadpool launches. So we're giving this a little bit more than the Silver Surfer rumor, but really not much. We're saying about 30% likely that we will be seeing the X-Men introduced in this fashion. That is what we have for the standard rumors for this episode, nerds. We do have a little bit of
Why do I get the impression you forgot to push the subscribe button? I mean, it's free, so go ahead and do that, and, yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks. We'll get back to the show now. Okay, bye.
Speculation to talk about as far as these rumors go, and it's attached to the Snow White rumor. The speculation on my part is it's not going to see release in March of 2025. Just not going to happen. I don't think they're going to push it back a whole nother year, but if we are to believe these rumors, I think there is a strong possibility that Snow White, a live action starring Rachel Zegler, becomes a holiday movie, which kind of makes a little bit more sense as far as the way Disney releases these things, especially remakes and stuff. So I would say if it's not going to be a summer movie, it's definitely going to be a holiday movie. So we're looking sometime around November, December for release on this in 2025. That is my speculation. That's really the only thing I wanted to touch on as far as speculation goes. And that's the end of the rumor mill. So let's move right along. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.